Trump's latest tariff crusade isn't just targeting mega corporations, it's obliterating small business owners who thought they were safe.
We have trillions of dollars coming into our country. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be a very poor nation, and we would be taken advantage of by every other nation in the world, friend and foe. We're not going to let that happen. And we have a very, very big case in the Supreme Court. Our country has a chance to be unbelievably rich again, but it can also be unbelievably poor again. If we don't win that case, our country is going to suffer so greatly.
For years, the U.S. was essentially an extension of their domestic market, says an Etsy seller in Canada. But now the rules and costs are far more imposing. We're talking about a policy change so brutal that it's forcing mom and pop operations to shut down overnight. And the ripple effects are spreading faster than Trump can tweet about his beautiful tariffs. To understand how catastrophic this really is, we need to look at what just got destroyed. The U.S. de minimis threshold used to be $200. That is, packages worth $200 or less were not subject to taxes and tariffs. But in 2016, the country raised the threshold sharply to $800, one of the highest in the world. This created a golden age for small international sellers, especially those on platforms like Etsy, eBay, and Amazon. For nearly a decade, this system worked beautifully for everyone involved. After the U.S. raised its limit to $800, that small stuff became big business driven by online shopping. Between 2015 and 2024, the volume of de minimis shipments entering the U.S. increased from 134 million shipments to over 1.36 billion shipments. On average, CBP processes over 4 million de minimis shipments into the U.S. each day. This wasn't just about cheap goods from China, it was about creating an entire ecosystem where small businesses could thrive. Then, Trump decided to blow it all up. Effective August 29th, imported goods sent through means other than the International Postal Network that are valued at or under $800, and that would otherwise qualify for the de minimis exemption, will be subject to all applicable duties. But here's where it gets really ugly. Trump didn't just end the exemption, he weaponized it with punitive tariffs that are designed to hurt. Specific duty, a duty ranging from $80 per item to $200 per item, depending on the effective IEPA tariff rate applicable to the country of origin of the product. Think about that for a moment. A small business owner in Canada sending a $50 handmade item to a customer in Michigan could now face an $80 tariff, making the total cost $130 for something that used to cost $50. That's not trade policy, that's economic warfare against small businesses. The human cost of Trump's tariff tantrum is devastating. Take Doris Kauchenek, a retiree in Ottawa who turned her woodworking hobby into a successful Etsy business. After Doris Kauchenek retired in her Ottawa, Canada suburb, her friends and family convinced her to start an Etsy shop, using her woodworking skills to make walnut candle holders and other housewares. Adjusting to the new paperwork and fees to ship to the U.S. has been a nightmare, Kauchenek says. Kauchenek's story isn't unique. It's happening to thousands of small business owners across Canada and around the world. In Canada, for instance, Kauchenek and other Etsy sellers suddenly face the threat of 35% tariffs on handmade jewelry and knickknacks. These aren't industrial manufacturers or corporate giants. These are people making jewelry in their basements, crafting wooden toys in their garages, or selling vintage items they've collected over decades.
With the U.S. president.
Okay, well, let's go to results. Right now, we have the best trade deal of any country in the world. Okay, those are results. We think it can be better, and we're working to make it better. But to be absolutely clear, 85% of our trade with the United States is tariff-free. Nobody else is in that position. Our average tariff is about 5.5%. That's the lowest average tariff of any country in the world. So right now we have the best, but we have real issues. Without question, we have real issues in steel, in aluminum, in forest products, in autos, potentially in pharma, copper, some other sectors. So there's these strategic sectors that the U.S. has focused on where we have issues, and as well.
The scale of this disruption is staggering. The result for retailers in Canada and other countries, says Cindy Baldassi, an Etsy vendor in Calgary, Alberta, is that the United States has been one of the easiest places to sell to. Baldassi, who runs Cindy Lou WSU2, a small jewelry business and who works as an e-commerce consultant for micro businesses, says that when she shipped her handmade jewelry to the US, under de minimis, she didn't have to think about prepaying customs and broker fees or filling out multiple fields on a form. But Trump's tariff war goes beyond just ending de minimis. It's created a perfect storm of bureaucratic nightmares and cost increases that's forcing small businesses to make impossible choices. In light of this, effective August 25th, Etsy will be suspending shipping label purchases on Etsy for Australia Post, Canada Post, Evri, and Royal Mail for US-bound packages. We are in close contact with these carriers and will reactivate label offerings on Etsy when they are able to support orders into the US with DDP options. Let that sink in. Major shipping carriers are literally suspending service to the United States because Trump's tariff policies are so chaotic and punitive that they can't figure out how to comply. The shift is already rippling around the world. From Asia to Europe, shipping services are pausing their deliveries to the US, saying they need time to figure out how to revamp their paperwork and payment processes. The economic impact is already showing up in the numbers. In Q1 2025, Etsy reported a consolidated GMS of $2.8 billion, as marking a 6.5% decrease year over year. Specifically, the Etsy marketplace experienced an 8.9% drop in GMS, totaling $2.3 billion. This decline indicates a reduction in the total value of goods sold on the platform, which could be attributed to various factors, including the new tariff implementations. But here's what makes Trump's approach particularly cruel. He's not just hurting foreign businesses, he's devastating American consumers and small businesses too. The Trump tariffs amount to an average tax increase of nearly $1,300 per U.S. household in 2025. American families are paying more for everything from handmade gifts to vintage clothing, while small businesses on both sides of the border are getting crushed. The irony is thick here. Trump claims he's protecting American businesses, but his tariff war is actually making it harder for American entrepreneurs to compete. These tariffs are making it harder for small retailers to thrive and even survive, wrote NRF Vice President of Advocacy and Engagement, Megan Cruz. When Canadian sellers can no longer afford to ship to the U.S., American consumers lose access to unique, handmade products, and American small businesses face less competition, which typically leads to higher prices and less innovation. The administrative burden alone is crushing small businesses. Paperwork will now need to include manufacturer information and a 10-digit HTS code that will determine what duties and tariffs will be charged, she said. I feel bad because there's a big bunch of vintage or antique e-sellers and there is no ideal solution for them, she said, explaining that older products may not have a clearly labeled country of manufacture or HTS code. Imagine being a vintage seller trying to figure out the country of origin and classification code for a 1950s brooch or a handmade quilt from the 1960s. The ripple effects are spreading beyond just individual sellers. But with the elimination of de minimis, some Canadian Etsy and eBay sellers have added notes to their profiles saying they will stop selling to customers in the United States. The small Etsy retailers, the eBays, all these online retailers are going to have a huge impact with this. This is going to change trade much more than what the tariffs did, said U.S. customs broker Damon Piatek. What's particularly frustrating is that Trump's justification for this economic destruction doesn't hold up to scrutiny. The de minimis exemption has been abused, with shippers sending illicit fentanyl and other synthetic opioids, precursors, and paraphernalia into the United States in reliance on the lower security measures applied to de minimis shipments, killing Americans. But experts point out that most fentanyl and other synthetic opioids enter the U.S. through the southern border with Mexico, according to the federal government. So Trump is using the fentanyl crisis as a pretext to wage economic war on small businesses, when the real source of the problem is elsewhere entirely. It's like using a sledgehammer to kill a fly, except the fly isn't even in the room you're destroying. The global response to Trump's tariff chaos shows just how isolated and destructive his approach has become. Sweeping use of the IEEPA sparked a trade war with Canada and Mexico and escalated the China-United States trade war. Federal courts have ruled that the tariffs imposed under the IEEPA are illegal. However, they remain in effect while the case is appealed. Even the legal system is pushing back against Trump's overreach, but he's doubling down anyway. On August 29th, the U.S. Court of Appeals declared the IEEPA tariffs illegal, ruling that the president lacked the authority to impose them under his emergency powers. The tariffs will remain in effect while the administration prepares its appeal to the Supreme Court. So Trump is continuing to destroy small businesses with tariffs that cower. TS have already declared illegal.
You know, when you look at the stock market's down today, the stock market's down because of that. Because the stock market needs the tariffs, they want the tariffs. If you look at AI, all of those, all of that money that's going to be invested, trillions and trillions of dollars, the biggest thing, bigger than the internet, I suspect. It's the internet plus 3 or 4 other things combined. We are leading very substantially with AI. We're leading because of tariffs. We're leading because of talent, and this is where they'd like to be. But without the tariffs, we wouldn't have a chance because we wouldn't be able to protect those investments of the companies coming in. So if you took away tariffs, we could end up being a third world country. That's how big the...
The long-term consequences of Trump's tariff war extend far beyond just higher prices. The impact of tariffs has been so severe that some small business vendors have shut down shipping to other countries. Heidi, who owns a yarn dyeing business, told Kiplinger that she was considering deactivating shipments to countries like the Netherlands, Canada, and the United Kingdom as she evaluates how Trump's tariffs impact her business expenses. We're witnessing the systematic destruction of the cross-border small business ecosystem that took decades to build. The last time the U.S. tried to slap a tariff on absolutely everything, no matter how small, it took 8 years and a worldwide depression to think better of it. Hopefully, it won't take that long and that much this time. But here's what's most infuriating about Trump's approach. It's not based on any coherent economic strategy or genuine concern for American workers. It's pure political theater designed to make him look tough while real people pay the price. Earlier this year, President Trump called the exemption a big scam. It's very important to minimis. It's a big deal, Trump said in April. It's a big scam going on against our country, against really small businesses, and we've ended it. We put an end to it. The cruel irony is that Trump claims he's helping small businesses while his policies are actually destroying them. Small businesses like Doris Kochenek's woodworking shop or Cindy Baldassi's jewelry business aren't the enemy. They're exactly the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that America should be supporting, not crushing with punitive tariffs. As we watch this economic destruction unfold, it's clear that Trump's tariff war isn't about protecting American interests. It's about feeding his ego and playing to his base, regardless of the human cost. The small business owners getting crushed by his policies are collateral damage in his quest to look tough on trade, and the American consumers paying higher prices are just another casualty in his war on economic common sense. The question, W, is how long this madness will continue and how many small businesses will survive Trump's tariff tantrum. For sellers like Kochenek and Baldassi, every day brings new challenges and costs that threaten to destroy the businesses they've worked so hard to build. And for American consumers, every purchase becomes more expensive as Trump's trade war makes everything cost more. This isn't making America great again. It's making America isolated, expensive, and hostile to the small businesses that are supposed to be the backbone of our economy. Trump's tariff nightmare is a perfect example of how his policies sound tough but actually hurt the very people he claims to protect.